and I use she, her pronouns, joined with Mawada Al-Masri as worship associate and song leader, accompanist Megan Smith, and Harriet and Altman and Susan Roberts will be making magic on AV and Zoom today. If you're visiting us for the first or second time today, would you raise your hand that we may welcome you? Excellent. Okay. And if you would like, you can introduce yourself. We'd love it if you would, but you don't have to. It's entirely up to you. Is there anyone else out there that's here for the first or second time? I think it's just you.
Is that working that time? Okay. Hello. My name is Maddie. I am Jesse's daughter. I just came from App State, so I'm here for the summer.
Awesome.
Yeah, I use she, her pronouns.
Okay, welcome. And now let's hear who's joining us on Zoom today.
On Zoom today, we have Landon, Martha and Joe Nassett, Karen Reddy, Lauren, Gary, Mark Lundgren, and Jace.
Hi, everybody. Wave to say hello. That's great. Okay. Parking for the installation is on our minds. One of the announcements today is that if you would be so kind, members of the congregation should park over in the Lowe's parking lot on Saturday so that we reserve this parking lot for visiting guests. So if you would do that, that would be awesome, because the installation is here. It's next Saturday. And the installation is at 5 p.m., Saturday, May 16th, with special guest minister Reverend Julika Herman de la Fuente visiting us from Minneapolis. And she'll be visiting us on Sunday, May 17th, with Reverend Nathan Ryan. And after the service, she'll be giving a free workshop on unraveling racism in congregations and communities. And now we center ourselves in sacred space and let music deepen the way.
George. For the beauty of the earth, this spinning blue-green ball, yes. Gaia, mother of everything, we walk gently across your back, to come together again in this place, to remember how we can live, to remember who we are, to create how we will be. Gaia, our home, the lap in which we live, welcome us. We also light our peace candle to remind ourselves that peace is a process that requires work, that peace is not merely an absence of conflict, but the presence of justice. And sorry, I missed a part, but no worries. And you guys can go ahead and get the next slide. And now we can say these words together. Come, let us worship together. And now please rise and embody your spirit as we sing hymn 91, Mother of All. To cherish this proud earth, its fragile beauty praise, and for the dreams your joy gives birth, a hope for future rays.
Our commitment to building beloved community means that we are glad with those who rejoice and weep with those who mourn. During our stones and water ritual, we place a stone or a shell in the water to represent each joy or sorrow we are carrying. Should you wish to share a personal joy or sorrow about a person or persons in your life, there's a paper to fill out and place in the basket on the way to the chalice. I will read those personal joys and concerns aloud to the congregation as part of the ritual. This is a sacred ritual that we do in meditative silence, being present to ourselves and to each other, listening to what the silence has to say. You may line up over here and down the central aisle. Come forward and place a stone or shell into the chalice to symbolize your cares and how they are held in community, resting in something larger than any of us. We welcome your joys and sorrows with our stones and water ritual. And I'd like Mawida to please add a couple of my own. Please add a stone or a shell. That despite recent horrific court decisions, we may become a truly representative democracy. And also, a friend of our church through the CUPS group who has her own health issues is caring for her husband who's battling an aggressive cancer. We send them love as they manage the healthcare process together. And now, yes, how beautiful on Mother's Day for all the daughters who have lost their mothers. And I would add, for all the mothers who have lost their daughters. This is a prayer for Tiny. She has a broken leg, and so we pray for her healing. It is Berkeley's third birthday, and we couldn't be more proud of him and beyond blessed to have him as a son. What a joy it is to your parents. We love you. Awesome. 17 years ago, and this is from Ronnie Bijou. 17 years ago, I became a mother on Mother's Day. On Mother's Day! Where are you? How perfect is that? On Mother's Day. Join us in wishing my overachieving potato, Ronnie, a happy birthday. Happy birthday. I have joy that my mom and so many UCF mothers are in my life, and deep sorrow that so many men in power have forgotten what mothers teach. Thank you, Adam. Yes. Thank you so much. This community witnesses your joys, your concerns, even the ones not spoken aloud, or those that are slowly forming in your heart. May you know love, may you know peace, and may you always be safe. And now, we are celebrating not only Mother's Day, but Others' Day. Did you know that? In Time for All Ages, we are going to be hearing the story of Mother's and Others' Day.
A Twinkle Original, Mother's and Others' Day. Akal stood outside his new school in the village that he had just moved to. "Are you excited?" asked Mum. "A bit excited, a bit scared," said Akal. Mum gave Akal a huge hug and put an extra one in his pocket for later. Just then, Akal's new childminder, Rania, arrived. "I'll pick you up after school," smiled Rania. "Why don't you go in with Marley? She's in your class." Mr. Campos welcomed Akal to Peach class and sat in with Marley, Tilly and Jacob. They were kind and friendly. Then Mr. Campos told the class that it was Mother's and Others' Day on Sunday. As Mr. Campos talked about a parade and making cards and gifts, Akal was confused. He knew it was Mother's Day at the weekend, but he had not heard of Mother's and Others' Day. Who were the others? At Rania's house after school, the children sat down to have a snack. Akal couldn't open his biscuit, so Rania helped him. "Tell me all about your first day," she said with a big smile. After their snack, Rania helped the children to do some Mother's and Others' Day heartwork. The children used their hands to make hearts on pieces of card. Akal made one for his mum, but who else could he give one to? That night, as Akal got ready for bed, he asked his mum if they could go to the parade. "Of course," smiled Mum. "That sounds like a lovely way to spend Mother's Day." It's Mother's and Others' Day here, said Akal. Mr. Campos says it's a village tradition. Mother's and Others' Day sounds wonderful, said Mum. I'd love to go. Akal cleaned his teeth, wondering if Mum knew who the others were. The next day, Mr. Campos taught the children a song that Peach class would be singing at the celebrations on Sunday. Soon they were all singing beautifully. Jacob sang a solo and Akal thought he was very brave. Suddenly, Miley started to cry. I feel sick, she told Mr. Campos. Not to worry, said Mr. Campos kindly. We'll ring home and ask if Dad or Daddy can pick you up. After lunch, Akal sat next to Tilly at carpet time. Your hairstyle is cool, Akal said. Thanks, said Tilly proudly. My stepmom did it for me. Mr. Campos gave the class a special project to do at home. I'd like you to draw some portraits of your mothers and others, he said. Then we'll use them on Sunday to make a huge display in the park. Later on, Akal's grandfather picked him up from Rania's house because Mum had to work late. Nana G cooked a yummy dinner while Akal drew his portrait of Mum. That's my mother, but who are the others, thought Akal. The phone rang and Nana G spoke to someone for a few minutes. That was Jacob's foster dad, Nana G told Akal. He's organising a picnic for Peach class after the parade. It sounds like a great way to get to know everyone. It was the morning of the Mothers and Others' Day. Akal and Mum walked towards the park for the parade. Akal clutched his portrait of Mum, ready to add it to the display. Welcome everyone, said the head teacher over a microphone. Before the parade, Peach class is going to sing for us. Akal stood with his new friends and was thrilled to see that Mary was feeling better. As they began to sing, Akal saw Nana G arrive and gave him a huge thumbs up. He saw Marley's dads, who had looked after her when she was sick. He saw Tilly's stepmom, who helped her to do her hair in amazing styles. He saw Jacob's foster parents dancing along to the song, and Renaya stood at the back mouthing the words that she helped Akal and Marley to practice. On Mother's and Others' Day, we all share our love for those who really care. You hug us, you help us, you're always there. Let's shout our thanks into the air. Suddenly Akal knew who the others were. They were all the people who loved and cared for him and his friends. They all deserved to be celebrated because they were all very special. After they had finished singing, Akal ran over to the bench and pulled his pens and paper out of his bag. He quickly drew some more pictures, just in time to add them to the display alongside his portrait of Mum. The head teacher announced it was time for the parade. Bring up your mothers and others, she cried. Akal excitedly grabbed Mum and Nana Gia, pulling them along. You're coming too, he said to Renaya. Yes, come and walk with us, Renaya shouted Marley. They skipped towards Tilly, Jacob and all their grown-ups, who were gathering to start the parade. It wasn't long before they were all parading through the streets of the village and having a wonderful time. I think I'm going to like it here, thought Akal. He felt lots of love for his fabulous mother as well as so many wonderful others in his life.
And now we send our younger ones and their teachers off to religious education classes with the blessing song. It's a blessing you were born, and it matters what you do. What you know about God is a piece of the
we invite you into a moment of silence and meditation. This week, we invite you to close your eyes and bring before your inner vision someone who loves you. Perhaps a mother, perhaps an other. This could be someone alive now or someone who has passed. Feel their heart connect with yours and send each other love. Then think of someone else, bring them before your inner eyes and send each other love. Keep doing this until the music brings us back.
And now we'll be singing some special music that I'd like to tell you a little bit about. This was actually written during World War II by the very person who created the lovely flower ceremony. And he wrote this beautiful, beautiful song that we will be singing at Reverend Leslie's installation. And so we thought it would be good to practice it this week. So Maweda will be leading you in that. And the words will be up here, and this is a new melody that you can listen to Maweda sing it so beautifully, and you will be able to follow along.
All right, everybody ready? So those were the first four notes. My life is made worthwhile by fighting bravely on for those ideals I hold most great and holy. Though evil winds may blow, they will not rock the calm in my soul, which remains both quiet and lowly. I might be disappointed, I might fall in the fight, but I am sure that my life is worth living. The life which is to come has been my holy shrine. I trust that I have lived a life worth giving. For heaven waits for those spirits have run through, but I am sure that my life was worth living. And they will find the sun, whose mind have let them rise, and stand against the darkness and the mayhem. I might be disappointed, I might fall in the fight, but I am sure that my life was worth living. that's the song. And of course, all in unison.
I have never had more trouble writing anything than I've had writing this sermon. There's a very good reason for this. Mother's Day, as it relates to my own mother, is triggering for me. I was an unwanted child with red hair, and that was like my ultimate sin. She kept telling me repeatedly, "Nobody in our family has red hair," which I guess meant I wasn't in the family. I was given the clear message repeatedly throughout my childhood: you're weird, you're different, you don't belong. I was physically and emotionally abused repeatedly. Even my own motherhood was influenced by her. I made sure I did the opposite of whatever she would have done. She haunts my sessions with my therapist still. She tried to strangle my sister. When my sister attempted suicide in her 20s, she was required to see a psychiatrist. She kept telling him how awful our mother was, but I don't think he believed her. So he insisted she bring our mother in for a session. Now, if you've ever been to a psychiatrist or had anything to do with them, you know they have no trouble at all telling you when your time is up. My mother began a diatribe about all of my sister's faults. She kept going long after the appointment was supposed to have ended. The following week, the psychiatrist's recommendation to my sister was simple: get as far away from her as fast as you can. So you see, Mother's Day is fraught for me. Nevertheless, when the worship committee met to discuss the May services, I felt inspired, I guess I'd call it that. Maybe crazy's a better word. I felt inspired to volunteer to lead this one. Why? One reason is that I believe with all my heart that most, if not all, the problems in today's world could have been solved with good parenting. Second, I believe the amount of labor involved in motherhood today is beyond any one person's capacity to accomplish. Third, I believe the lack of respect for women and women's roles plays a part in the horrendous way we treat our common mother, Earth. And above all, I wanted no one to feel left out on this Mother's Day. Not folks with great mothers, not folks with bad mothers, not folks who were not mothers, and not folks who either chose not to be mothers or who had the choice made for them. It was a tall order, and I gave myself writer's block thinking about it. So when I could no longer wait for inspiration to strike, I just started writing. So let's start with the question, what is good parenting? The problem is there are many different answers depending on whom you listen to. I listen to the likes of Dr. Gabor Mate, Dr. Bessel van der Kolk, Pete Walker, and various child development experts. Furthermore, the idea of what good parenting is changes over time. Unfortunately, I suspect many of you, were born in the era when Dr. Spock was the best-known expert in the field. Note to my nerd friends, I said Dr. Spock, not Mr. Spock. Dr. Spock, quite frankly, didn't give a damn about an infant's needs. He wanted to make sure that little critter fit in with the parent's schedule. Scheduled feedings. Hungry between scheduled feedings, cry it out. Scheduled bedtime in a separate room. My mother was happy to adhere to his strict creed, as evidenced by my baby book. Some 70 years later, here's what child development experts, physicians, and experts on childhood trauma say about what a child actually needs. First, they crave the closeness of physical touch. It must be mentioned here that what we call modern life is a teeny tiny blip on the timeline of humans' existence on Earth. Therefore, I will often be referring to research done on indigenous people and early hunter-gatherer societies in this section. What infants need has not changed. The world into which they are born has. In the words of Dr. Gabor Mate, Dr. Spock proposed a cure for what he called chronic resistance to sleep in infancy. The way to ensure that the infant doesn't get away with such tyranny, he wrote, was to say goodnight affectionately but firmly, walk out of the room, and don't go back. That's right. The tyranny of a baby who is physiologically and emotionally programmed to crave physical closeness with the parent, as do all mammalian young. Contrast that with what an elderly Cree woman once told Mate. In our clan, children weren't even allowed to touch the ground until they were 2 years old. They were in our arms all the time. Anthropologist Ashley Montague wrote of the traditional parenting practices among the Netsilik Inuit in Canada's Northwest Territories. The Netsilik mother, even though she lives under the most difficult of conditions, is an unruffled personality who bestows warmth and loving care upon her children. She never chides an infant or interferes with it in any way except to respond to its need. And that reminds me of something that I learned this year. I am not certain it's true, but it's a beautiful story, and I'd like to share it with you. If you've ever sung Rockabye Baby and wondered about those words, rockabye baby on the treetop, when the wind blows, the cradle will rock, when the bough breaks, the cradle will fall, and down will come baby, cradle and all? I mean, really, who's going to go to sleep to that? All right, but I heard this wonderful story that someone had visited indigenous people, and when their babies were in their cradle boards, they would hang the cradle board from a tree limb and let the motion of the limb rock the baby to sleep and sing a song something like Rockabye Baby. Now, when the bough breaks simply means when the baby gets too big. When the baby gets too big to rock on the limb, which is a sad day for the mothers. So that makes it a much gentler story than the words would have you believe. But wait a minute, this is Mother's Day, right? What about the mother's needs? Ashley Montague stated it beautifully. Quote, "When a baby is born, a mother is born. There is considerable evidence that at this time, and for months thereafter, her needs for contact exceed those of the infant. In my experience, this is true. I remember feeling, after 9 months of being able to keep my babies safe within me, the terrible feeling of how vulnerable he was now that he was out there. I don't know how I ever went back to work except that I had no choice. It is interesting to note that in imaging studies, a baby's smile lights up the same reward areas in the mom's brain activated by junk foods or addictive drugs. And they release the same pleasure chemicals and trigger the same high, as Dr. Gabor Mate muses nature, that unscrupulous drug pusher. So for mother and baby to both get what they need should be easy, right? They both need the same thing. The problem is our society makes it much more difficult for them to get what they need. Mothers have to go back to work. Out-of-touch elder generations sometimes insist that if sleep training was good enough for me, it's good enough for everybody else. And the same is said about spanking. But in the world of science, quote, the American Academy of Pediatrics, having reviewed nearly 100 studies, issued a statement in 2018. It called for the end of spanking and harsh verbal punishment of children and adolescents. Such treatment, the organization of 67,000 pediatric specialists pointed out, only increase aggression in the long term and actually undermines the development of self-control and responsibility. By elevating stress hormone levels, it may even harm the healthy brain and lead to mental health problems. More recently, a Harvard study showed that the damage wrought by spanking to the child's nervous system and psyche may be as severe as that caused by more intense violence. And think about what you're teaching girls. I remember when my mother would make me come to her, and then she would spank me. She's saying, I love you, and this is what you can expect from people who love you. Can you imagine how different our world might be? I have one person in mind. I wonder if you do too. If everyone were well parented. The problem is, we lay more responsibility on parents, especially mothers, than they can realistically carry. And that's because our society is structured against good parenting. This brings me to my second point. Parents can't do it alone. Here's an example of how our society thwarts the mother-infant bond. Fewer than 20% of new mothers have access to paid leave. 1 in 4 American women returns to work within 2 weeks of giving birth. According to Matei's research, for healthy child development, according to the child's neurobiological requirements, a minimum of 9 months is needed for the infant and mother to be together. Now, if you've ever been an exhausted mother or know one, this might not sound ideal. But what if our society were structured differently? British anthropologist Anthony Turnbull spent 3 years living with pygmies in what was known as the Belgian Congo in South Central Africa. Until recently, these tribal people followed ways of life dating back for thousands of years. He related his observations in the classic work, The Forest People. He wrote, "The infant knows his real mother and father, of course, and has a special affection for them, and they for him. But from an early age, he learns that he's a child of them all. In the small band hunter-gatherer milieu, the extended family and clan formed an indispensable network of warm, responsive support. Far from being a two-person show, much less a solo performance, parenting originally functioned within a broad circle of attachments, the multi-generational clan, where consistent affection was modeled, encouraged, and shared. It was also supplemented in a manner both merciful and common sense by a select group of other caregivers, the others, designated as allo mothers. Allo mothers take the baby when mom needs a break. They carry, rock, and play with the child. They take care of mundane tasks. They are the buffer for the mother-child, father-child relationship. In effect, these cultures had a socialized child care for all policy to their great benefit. No one is suggesting we go back to the hunter-gatherer lifestyle. But might we not creatively adopt some of their healthy child-rearing practices? And what would that look like in our modern lives? It is so worth pondering. If you want to read more about Dr. Matei's research, I highly recommend his book, The Myth of Normal. Now I'd like to turn from the micro to the macro. Motherhood, womanhood, is treated all too often with disrespect and disdain. We are all well aware of the misogyny that permeates our culture, and I believe it has had an insidious effect on the way we treat our world, Mother Nature, Mother Earth, Gaia. A huge part of this comes from the Judeo-Christian culture in which Eve is blamed for sin entering the world. And the likes of Augustine polluted our idea of the purity of infancy with his concept of original sin. So deep do these beliefs lie that woman is somehow to blame for everything that's wrong with the world, and that children have something inherently wrong or even evil with them, that we are barely aware how they affect us in our treatment of children. Upon meeting the savages that brought up their children without hitting, the Pilgrims were horrified, reminded perhaps of that insidious Bible verse, "Spare the rod and spoil the child." Love cannot spoil a child. The lack of love can. I believe, not limited to women, that we are all being asked at this time, as we watch institutions crumble around us, to birth a new society. Recently, we've become aware of the extent to which the molestation of women and children is happening. Some men's, altogether too many men's, attitude seems to be, if you want it, take it, with no regard for the dignity of the human person, with no regard for the sanctity of Mother Earth. We need to live differently in so many ways if we are to honor our common mother. I would like for us to spend a few minutes pondering ways in which we might support a mother, our own, a mother of our acquaintance, or our beloved Mother Earth. What would need to change? How could we go about changing it? Pick a problem that really bothers you, and write it down. Then spend a few minutes brainstorming possible solutions. What could be done? How could we make things easier? Keep going. The longer you write, the more ideas you'll have. And then I'll call on a few people to share their problems, as well as the solutions they came up with. If anyone did not receive paper and pencil, could you raise your hands? Okay, so our greeter will be coming around. Keep your hands up so she knows where to go. And she'll be coming around and giving you what you need. Remember, you're writing down the problem that bothers you about the way children are raised or about the way we treat our Mother Earth, and then possible solutions. Is there anyone who would like to share the problem that they wrote and possible solutions?
No wrong answer.
There are no wrong answers. Yes. Anything you have to say will be much appreciated.
I'll try to start it off. So I thought of one, but it turned out to be two in one. It's a two-parter. The first problem seemed obvious. I wrote, children of wealthy families receive all kinds of care, health, school, shelter, education, while kids in poverty or less economic blessings suffer without these. So solution was universal health care? What is that? So that seems obvious. We've all heard of that, and we all know that in today's world that is not what we're seeing. Universal health care reduced military government spending to allow more for those in need. So second part is school funding goes with that. Second problem is when we as humans grow up with a sense of entitlement and otherness, meaning like because I'm rich or whatnot, or a certain color or ethnicity or religion, I'm very different and therefore maybe better than others. Those who grow up with that or taught that, it leads to adults with the same lack of empathy. So the solution for this, see other side. So I just see it as if we do begin to, in progress, like I think I remember we were at some point in my life, that will lead not only to children being, well cared for, but it will also affect our mentalities as well. Have a little more empathy for others.
Beautifully done. Thank you, Adam. Anyone else care to share? Yes, good. Ron?
I've worked as a biologist, a habitat biologist most of my life. And my wife right now is working in West Virginia, which was basically clear-cut, the entire state. And this is very thin northern soil. So once they clear-cut it, wind and rain washed the soil away, and all the brush that they left behind burned the ground. So they tried to rehab or replant the spruce trees that they cut. They wouldn't grow because the soil was destroyed. If they had selectively cut to begin with, they could plant new trees again.
Yeah.
So profit, the problem is it's profit over conservation. We need to practice conservation and then try to squeeze some profit out of that.
I remember how shocked, yeah, thank you, yes. I remember how shocked I was when I was in elementary school. The first time I heard natural resources. Sounds so clinical. You mean trees, water, earth? Yeah, anybody else care to share? Yeah.
Come back to Jay.
No? Okay. Oh, that's right. I just want to relay a center in my hometown of Lansing, Michigan, what they did. They had a senior center, they come in and do yoga and things like that, and they attached a daycare center. And there was a door where the seniors could go in to the daycare center. So after their yoga class, they would go in there. The babies were never put down. They just went from one hand to the other all day long, at no extra charge to the parents. It's a simple thing. We have athletic facilities all over the place, and I would do it after yoga, right? And yeah.
What a wonderful idea. Thank you. Yes.
For me, it's something that's been bothering me for a long time. For those of you who've been overseas, understand how teachers, hold a very important place in their society, and in countries like Japan, people, respect them, tremendously. and it always, got to me very hard how some teachers, a lot of teachers in the U.S. have to get another an extra job just to make ends meet. And we're talking about people who are forming the minds of the next generations. The next president, the next engineer, the next person who's going to take us to Mars or wherever. But our children who, it's this very formative age, young age, they, it hurts me that those professionals cannot spend their time 100% on the kids because they have to think about other things that they have to do. Yes, we talk a lot about parents, grandparents, the people that are around the kids all the time, but we often forget that teachers spend more time with the kids than we probably do if we look at it a certain way. So that's where my mind goes.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I am going to college for education, actually, and the biggest issue that I've seen, like, working in schools with children is the lack of actual care from parents. A lot of kids, you've heard of like a helicopter parent that just kind of paves a way for their child to do whatever they want to do, but then the kid doesn't have boundaries in their lives, or they don't feel like their feelings are valid or that they can share them with other people, because their parents kind of just decide that they know what's going on in their kid's head and that they can make decisions for them, especially in the education system. A lot of parents are like deciding what kids can read and things like that. But it's really important for parents to give kids a voice also and let them talk about how they feel and actually be really present in your children's like upbringing through education, because it presents a lot of kids like being rebels and not feeling like they have a solid home in a sense. So,
Thank you. You're so right. Anyone else? One more person.
I'll speak in general terms. The thing that bothers me most is the absolute rape of the earth, the disrespect for all living creatures. It's terrible, and it's got to be stopped. And I think the best way we can stop that, or at least have a chance of stopping it, is by good parenting. Okay? Good parenting also involves a village to help with the parenting. It involves teachers and the respect that they should get. We don't hear enough of it. They're not treated as well as they should be. I think simply following the golden rule pretty much says it all. And what we can do as adults, to the best of our abilities, is to elect people who actually belong in the same wheelhouse of beliefs. And hopefully we can get this done and save this country.
Amen. Thank you all so much. Wonderful ideas, important problems, and creative solutions. Thank you. In conclusion, I would like to share an inspiring stories of interspecies support for mothers. A humpback whale mother must traverse 8,000 miles to reach the nurseries of Moorea in French Polynesia in September. Through punishing currents and without a single meal, she has pushed her baby calf to the surface to breathe. Lacking the fat that provides buoyancy, the baby calf cannot do this on its own. For weeks, the mother has lifted her calf to the surface for every single breath, 24 hours a day. Then one glorious day, help arrives. In a rare form of cross-species altruism, local dolphin pods flank the exhausted pair. Dolphins use high-frequency sonar to scan for predators. This allows the mother to enter a stage called logging. This allows the mother to shut down half of her brain and enter a deep sleep. Meanwhile, the dolphins ride the whale's pressure wave, moving at high speeds with zero effort, staying fresh to defend the calf at a moment's notice. So you see, the ocean isn't merely a place of survival of the fittest. It is a place of community and of profound interspecies empathy. May we humbly learn how to be of such service to one another. And happy Mother's Day.
Now please rise in body or spirit for hymn 110 in the gray hymnal. Come, children of tomorrow, come. New glory dawns upon the world. The warring banners must be furled. The earth become our common home. From plain and field and town there sound the stirring rumors of the day. Old wrongs and burdens must make way for all to tread the common ground. Divided we have long withstood the love that is our common speech, the comrade cry of each to each is calling us to humanhood. Greeters, if you could please come forward to receive the collection plates, then stand and face the gathered congregation while I talk about the group with whom we are sharing the offering this month. And then you will hand the plate to the first person in the first row and let them pass it along. Our offering this month will be shared with Coastal Carolina River Watch. They serve a total area of 320 miles of rivers and streams, 140,000 acres of estuaries, and 129 miles of coastline in the White Oak River Basin. They protect the quality of water and quality of life in coastal NC through boots on the ground monitoring, outreach, and advocacy in our communities. Please give generously to support this wonderful organization which is doing so much to protect our natural resources. join in blessing this offering with hymn 402, From You I Receive. From you I receive, to you I give, together we share, and from this we live. From you I receive, to you I give, together we share, and from this we live. Now please join me in reading our chalice, extinguishing words. Maria, would you mind? We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Now in Espanol. Extinguimos este llama, pero no la luz de la verdad, el calor de comunidad o el fuego de nuestro compromiso. Estos los salvaremos en el corazón hasta que estemos juntos otra vez.
It is UCF tradition to join hands and form anything close to a circle. We do that around the perimeter here. However, if you prefer not to, or moving is not what you need right now, please remain in the center of the circle, and we'll surround you with presence and love. Bit of a stretch today. May you be well mothered, even if only by yourself. May you be to someone a mother or an other. For in the words of Emily Dickinson, if we can help one tiny bird unto his nest again, we shall not live in vain. Blessed be.